You ready to get to work? Hey everybody, and welcome back to JCR DIY and a new video in our 1999 Jeep Cherokee series. As the title says, we've got some big upgrades coming to our 99 Cherokee. An opportunity presented itself that I really could not pass up, and in November I ordered a number of products from a company that I'm sure most of you are very familiar with, JCR Offroad. And some things went right, some things went wrong, all the way through Christmas. And I had hoped to get these projects done over the holiday periods. Unfortunately, had an injury right before Christmas, and then I got really sick, and it put me down for a couple of weeks. So I got started on these much later than I had planned. They were much more time intensive than I expected, and I consider myself to be pretty realistic when it comes to, to trying to estimate how much time it's going to take to do something. But this was a lesson for me. It was a bit humbling. So what I've done is I've decided to break up this into a couple of different videos. The first one is going to be the preparation, some of the fabrication of two of the bumper kits, or two of the kits that I got from JCR. This is going to include a front DIY winch bumper kit, as well as a rear DIY bumper kit with the capability of using a tire carrier. There are plenty of videos out there about how to make these, so this is not a how-to video. This is just documenting the process that I had to go through to install these. Some of the things that I encountered. My Jeep Cherokee came with factory skid plates. So, as you've seen, I had to remove not only the tow hitch, but I also had to remove the factory fuel tank skid plate as a part of the rear bumper installation. A lot of the components that we used were also, of course, gotten from JCR. That included a front and rear unibody tie-in kit, as well as I purchased also the JCR nut strips to be used on the rear tire or the rear bumper, and we learned some things along the way there. So I'll pop in every now and then to give you some information about things that I discovered, some of the challenges that I faced, some of the difficulties that I encountered, and in the end I'll give you a quick synopsis of my experience with these JCR products. So you might want to stick around to hear that. I don't know if you're going to hear that in some of the other videos, but I'll catch you then. So I'll see you in a bit. Okay, I'm going to have to make a modification to my factory gas tank skid plate. The unibody tie-in kit uses two factory frame rail mounting points, one of which is covered by the lip of the gas tank skid plate. So I'm going to need to pull the skid plate out, mark it, and then drill that spot out on both sides. Not something I was expecting. So this was the first unexpected challenge that we ran into. Again, there are plenty of videos out there about these bumper kits, and I've watched a number of them. I've seen people do different things with them, but not a single video ever mentioned what I came across. And granted, that might be because either the vehicles in use for those videos didn't have factory skid plates, or perhaps they had their own, or they had a different brand. There was no documentation or anything in any of the instructions that referred to factory skid plates being a consideration, but it really wasn't that difficult of a challenge to overcome. Using the nut strips, able to mark the spot where the hole was going to need to be. Of course, got out, drilled the pilot holes, and then used a step bit to get it to the size that allowed for the included hardware to be installed. The difference on this side is that we've also got to include the exhaust hanger bracket here. And what I'm going to suggest is that you don't install the U-bolt yet, just this bracket, okay? This hole is the furthermost forward, and this one is the next one heading back. Now we're gonna work on putting in the rear unibody tie-in brackets. And I'll go ahead and share with you the situation that I'm in with these and let you know that I may have to change this setup once I hear back from JCR. The issue is that these brackets here do not match the pictures of the installed bracket on the website. And it was my thought that with this flange here, this 90 degree, this was meant to wrap around the frame. So this was supposed to point up. The problem with that is this deviation right here. That deviation is there to account for this lip. Okay, this lip right here. It has to deviate down to get over this lip, but that puts the flange facing down, which doesn't match the picture on the website. Now, they said this flange is supposed to be toward the gas tank, so that would give me this, but in the pictures, this section, this tab section, I'm going to call it, is facing inboard like this. So if I'm going to have the correct deviation down to get around this and have this tab facing in like the pictures, this flange is not going to be toward the gas tank, it's going to be this way. Like this. Let me get it lined up. There we go. It's going to be like this. And again, I am waiting on a response from JCR. I sent them pictures to see if, and they wanted to verify whether these were perhaps improperly manufactured. But these look like the pictures, not the installed pictures, but the pictures of the brackets themselves on the website. I'm going to go ahead and install these with the understanding that depending on what JCR says, I may have to uninstall them. I'm going to install them with the deviation down like it's supposed to be, so we can clear this. Flange is going to be down, and it's going to be on the outboard side, not the inboard side. So this hole right here, if you didn't have the gas tank skid plate,
this hole would have a matching hole in the frame rail. But because the skid plate covers up that hole, that's why we had to drill out a hole in the flange on the skid plate. So we're going to go ahead and try putting these in. I expect the passenger side to be more difficult just because of, as you know, the exhaust.
Alright guys, so from here I'm showing you some of the process of actually, we'll call it fabricating the bumpers, a lot of the bending. Of course, JCR pre-cuts and slots a lot of the pieces, which makes it easier to put together. You don't need a brake to bend the pieces, which is really nice. And another feature that I'll say there was a pro and a con to is that each piece at every seam is supposed to have laser cut the angle at which it is supposed to be bent. I say a pro and a con because there were a couple of pieces in both kits that an angle was not laser etched in there, so I kind of had to figure that out on my own. But just keep in mind, when you're doing these, you're gonna have to massage certain pieces to get them to line up, and I am by no means a skilled welder. I am a hobby welder at best, and I use the tools that I have to get done what I get done. So there's going to be a lot of just demonstration of the folding process, some of the tools used to find, you know, correct angles and that sort of stuff, and then we'll start getting into the welding. And when we get to that part, I'll tell you a little bit about my welding setup and go from there.
Hey guys, welcome back. We are moving on from working on our rear bumper because we are awaiting spindle sleeves that weren't sent with the bumper kit, and we're waiting on those to get sent to us. So in the meantime, I've started working on the front bumper, and we're at the very beginning stages kind of this. Doing the center section, of course. Got this seam back here welded, and it's gone. That went pretty good. Some of the welds on the other side, the inside of the winch tray, were not as clean. I'm not really sure why, whatever. Anyway, I'm not a great welder, so I'm gonna finish working on this seam back here, stitching this one in. And then from there, I'm going to set this aside. We're going to bring the wings over. I need to open up the angle on the lower portions of the wing to fit this, this angle here. Again, this is upside down, so it's hard for you to see, to get these to match here. So I'm going to finish this seam, we're going to set this down, and I'll bring the wings over and work from there.
So this portion here that you're seeing is me stitch welding this front plate, and this is where my frustration and impatience began to bubble up, because again, I felt that I knew how long, or felt I had a good grasp of how long this sort of thing should take. And like I said, my impatience got a little bit ahead of me, and while I was stitch welding, that's great, trying to give places time to cool. I don't think I gave it enough time to cool properly, so we ended up with an unfortunate condition that I'll tell you about here.
Alright, so the first major problem I've run into is that when I was doing the stitch welding across the front face of the bumper, I guess I did not allow enough time in between stitch welds for it to cool to keep this from warping. And what I've gotten because of that is that the last place I welded over here, I popped the tack weld, and now I've got a good almost 3/8 of an inch gap from where this plate has warped out. So I'm going to try to fix it. I got this large 8-inch clamp. I'm going to take that and I'm going to put it here, and I'm going to try to squeeze this back together. Before I do that though, because I don't want to squeeze this together and just pop a tack weld over here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and reinforce the tacks that are still holding so that they don't let go. And then once I can get this flushed back up, squeezed back together, I'll go in and tack, heavy tack again. I can't really do anything more until I get this straightened out because I can't weld in the D-ring shackle supports, and I can't really add the wings until this is taken care of. So that's where we're at. Alright guys, I'm sorry I didn't get all of this taped, but our front winch bumper is pretty much tacked in place. I have two small pieces that are really optional that are going to go inside each side on the wings for light brackets. So put those in, but before I put these in, I want to go ahead and start welding this up. So that's what I'm going to be doing today, and then get these in. As long as everything lines up the way it's supposed to, which I really don't know. Okay. Anyway, get those put in. Make sure everything's welded up, square. I've already test fitted and everything, like all the bullet holes line up, the frame tie-ins. So we just need to go through and finish welding everything up, and hopefully I can do a lot better job than what I feel like I've done in some of these. So that's what we're going to be doing.
So to repeat a point that I've made in many of my videos, if you're doing DIY, you're probably not a professional at everything, and it's just important to keep in mind that situations may arise that require you to think out of the box, and this here is a good example. When I got everything tacked up, I still had what I considered an unacceptable gap where I was going to need to weld near this D-ring shackle support. So I ended up using a map torch to heat up that particular area so that I could use a small hand sledge to get that lined up. Hey guys, we'll go ahead and wrap this video up by just giving you some of my experience and opinions about these DIY bumper kits that we got from JCR. Again, this video was not a how-to as far as doing or actually fabricating or whatnot, how to do these bumpers. There are plenty of videos out there. I didn't need to do that for you. But they are, to me, a valuable option for anybody who doesn't want to spend the money that some of the vendors out there are charging for their pre-built materials and components. I'll be dead honest with you. I would never have bought any of JCR's pre-built bumper selection. Not because I question their quality, but simply because of the price point. I've talked about doing bumpers on the Cherokee for over a year, and it was just price prohibitive. The whole reason I decided to go with JCR for this instance was because a new product was, I'm going to say unveiled. It was released that made the DIY bumper kits more reasonable, and that is a DIY tire carrier kit. That was not something that was available before, and I had to look at it from a simple, again, price point. Before, I was looking at probably going through 3 different vendors to get a front bumper, a rear bumper, and a rear tire carrier, and I was probably looking at spending close to $5,000 for everything that would have been required, not just the bumpers themselves or the tire carrier itself, but also including all of the extra little stuff that's necessary, from unibody tie-in kits, steering box spacers, all that stuff that you want to do to make sure that you're putting together a solid platform for recovery. And that's why I've never looked at many of the Amazon kits, because a lot of them don't account for that, and it requires you to actively look for items that are going to work with some of those DIY kits. But November rolled around, the DIY tire carrier kit came out, and JCR was also running a 20% discount during the month of November. So I purchased the front winch bumper kit, the rear bumper kit, and the new rear tire carrier kit, along with all the unibody tie-in requirements and the nut strips. And to be honest, I didn't need to buy the nut strips. The nut strips that came from the factory were actually in really good shape. I probably could have reused those. But instead of spending almost $5,000, I ended up spending closer to $1,600. And that is a huge, huge savings. Now, of course, I'm a hobby welder. I'm not a professional. So these DIY projects are going to be challenging, and there is the risk that you might mess something up beyond a point of recovery. Luckily, that did not happen with me, although the warpage on the front bumper was a major issue. And I know I didn't record how I fixed that, but I actually ended up having to pull that entire front plate off and redo some stuff. So just keep in mind, if you're thinking about doing this, be prepared to have to pivot and to improvise. There's a lot of improvisation that can take place, and you're definitely going to see that in the next video, which I'm going to call a how-to on the JCR DIY tire carrier kit, but it's really going to be more like a how-to sorta. So make sure you check that video out. Again, if you've stuck around this long with this video, I really appreciate it. You guys watching that's great. If you like the video, hit that thumbs up, do all the YouTube stuff, subscribe, notifications, share it, all that kind of stuff. And leave me a comment. Let me know what your experiences are. If you've used some of these DIY kits, what your level of experience was, if you had any particular difficulties. I'm not going to show what the installed product looks like for these bumpers until the end of the tire carrier how-to video. So I'll do a wrap around, like a wrap up then. But and we're also going to do some honest talk about my experience with JCR. I will say this: it was less than pleasant. They were there to answer questions, but there were some things that were said, and just some what seems like general philosophy that I've not too thrilled about. And just to put it out there right now, I paid for all this stuff with my own money. It's not a sponsor, nothing. So, I mean, you're gonna get what I feel, period. So thanks for checking out the video. Make sure to check out the JCR DIY tire carrier how-to video, sorta. And I'll see you on the other side. Thanks for checking us out. But until then, I should go.